Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all doing good and well. So it's time for another episode in the Symphonic Sundays series. And this time I'm joined by Hector, jilted on a couch reviews, to do a special challenge for this week. For this Sunday, we are ranking the albums of Within Temptation, one of the biggest names in the symphonic metal scene since the early days, since the 1990s. We're going back to for this band. They have 8 studio albums, so we'll be ranking these from our least favorite to our favorite album. So Hector is kind of like a great support for this channel. So you've been supporting this series as well. So I'm grateful that you've helped me to find some guests as well so far. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. And I'm your first guest with no musical talent.
I don't know about that. I've seen you do a bit of singing. It was pretty good. You seem like you had a karaoke stuff, right?
Yes, I did.
Cool. All right. So I guess we're gonna take it in turns for each choice. So we'll start at number 8. And I guess no reason to hang around. Hector, do you want to start with your number 8 choice, your least
Yes.
favorite in this discography?
So my least favorite album from Within Temptation is 2014's Hydra. And this is my least favorite. First of all, this album, I think they had a like very success with their 2011 album, but on this one they relied too much on guest vocals. And actually, when I was thinking this could have been a great episode for an Is It That Bad for Hydra. But like, for example, like you have a song and We Wrong featuring Exhibit.
Mm.
And I'm like, why do you have X to the C on that track? It really gives nothing to the track. His rapping on it is I'm not a rapper, but I don't think he's quite good on that one. And also at that time, Exhibit wasn't even like relevant.
Mm.
Like, like he hadn't been relevant since like I haven't heard Exhibit rapping in a long time. For those of you, a lot of you may remember him from Pimp My Ride from MTV, where he took like awful cars and made him like more prettier but awful at the same time. So he's rapping on this. It's to me, it's just not. It doesn't do anything for the track. And I also think that if you take away that from the track, it is a better track. So other songs you have Paradise, What About Us with featuring Tarja, and it's okay. I think that's the best, probably one of the best tracks because you have Tarja and the lead singer from Within Temptation. So that's like a power metal, like ballad for the ages.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like the songs are then not really memorable. You have Whole World Is Watching, who has Dave Pirner. I have no idea who Dave Pirner is.
Yeah.
But the track can have like a country vibe to it in some of the singing, which I felt like that's strange. And Dangerous featuring Howard Jones. I couldn't hear Howard Jones vocals, and
Yeah. But
Howard Jones has a great distinctive voice. So
mm,
to me, that's like a wasted opportunity. So yeah,
yeah,
those
absolutely.
reasons,
Yeah.
for those reasons alone, I have this album at number 8.
Yeah. I'll get to that pretty shortly. I think like Howard does come into it quite late in the song, but it's quite brief. And when
Yeah.
he is, so I think he's trying to like, he's just not, you can't really hear him at all in the moments where he is singing with Sharon. And yeah,
No,
it's a shame because I feel like those two great voices should be like create a really powerful harmony, but it just doesn't really work.
agree. It was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So my number 8 is Resist, which came out in 2018. And for me, I just feel very indifferent towards this album. It feels very saturated in effects, and it's one of the sort of, really big. Again, like rather like with Hydra, you have some guest spots in this one as well. It's kind of in this era of Within Temptation where they're having guest spots in songs. But I don't know, I feel like without Sharon's voice and without the sort of epicness of the tracks, there's not actually that much in the song so much with this album for me. I do like the last track on the album a lot, Trophy Hunter. I think it's a really good closing song. The opener with Jacoby Shaddix is okay as well. I quite like that one, but there's not much else for me on Resist that I really liked. I mean, Supernova is quite good in a way. You know, big Sharon chorus, but yeah, the rest of that album is, yeah, I feel very indifferent towards it. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought Supernova was a was a cover song at first, because there's I don't
Oasis.
no, they have a
No.
Supernova, but there's also another artist from the 90s, her name just fell out of my mind, but she had a song called like a Supernova, but all of a sudden I forgot her name. I'll remember later. So actually, my number 7 is Resist.
Yeah.
And also for the same things. I think this album is just like, like I think they relied again too much on the on the guest stars. The reckoning with Jacoby, I don't call him Jay, I call him Kobe Dick. That's gonna be his name for me forever. Kobe Dick, if you're nasty, from Papa Roach. I I don't, I'm actually, there's a lot of people who hate Papa Roach. I'm not one of them. I actually I love their first earlier albums. Uh, Maybe not not so much the latter ones, but I've seen them live and they're good. And that song, it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. I thought like songs like Firelight, Mercy Mirror, but I think Trophy Hunter is good. But also, it's kind of like it's not bad, but it's also not memorable. So it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, it's not a terrible
That
album.
album.
It's not that bad. I don't
Yeah,
think I'd say it was that bad, or is it that bad? But
isn't that bad. But the album cover kind of sucks. It looks like an
yeah.
anime of something, and I
Definitely.
don't know. I just think that, yeah, this was, to me, this was like Hydra 2.0.
Mm,
Like they tried to do the same thing with Hydra. So
yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I have it at 7.
So we're sort of on the same lines because my number 7 is Hydra. So we're along the same lines, the same sort of era. Yeah, I think what you said pretty much for Hydra applies to me. Almost exactly the same stuff. I think there were some wasted opportunities in that album because I do think there were some good songs in there. Um, I particularly liked. I actually liked the opener quite a bit, and there was a song later on called "Covered by Roses." And I really
Hmm.
enjoy that song. I think that's really good, and it's not. I don't think it's a guest spot
No,
song.
there's no guest spot on that one.
No guest spot there, and that's really good. And yeah, the Talia one's pretty good. Like you said, the one with Howard Jones felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. And yeah, pretty much everything else you said, it's just not, doesn't have neither the sort of, I think, uniqueness of their early albums, nor does it have the punch of and power of their, like, some of their more popular albums, which we'll get to, I'm sure, soon. But yeah, it just feels like it misses both the sort of punch and the originality, I think, that some of the other Within Temptation albums actually have. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. So yeah, so maybe my number 6 will be a hot take,
Mm.
but I actually pick
What's
as
this?
my number 6 their first album, Enter.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and I'm gonna explain why. I haven't listened to this album ever, and I listened to it preparing for this album ranking, and I don't like the production on this album. I don't know why.
Mm.
It sounds kind of flat sometimes, and
Yeah.
it's more goth. It sounded more like I know Evanescence came later than them, but it sounded like that type of like they weren't defined as well. The singing is quite good, but I didn't like. I think I enjoyed Pearls of Light and Gatekeeper. I enjoyed that track, but besides that, I felt like the production on it wasn't that great, and it sounded like a band who's trying to discover each other. Like it sounded
Mm.
like a lot of other bands. So that to me, maybe some people love that album, but I thought that uh, I didn't enjoy it as much. So that's why I have it at my number 6. And maybe I think some people might be might be like, "Oh, how dare you!" Their first album, but sometimes this is the things with first albums. Sometimes, and I think this is something that is very important. If your first album is your first album, that could be a blessing and a curse because then you will never live up to your first album. But if your first album is just okay, but not bad, it's good because it means you have room for improvement. So sometimes I think that sometimes your best album from the bad is not the best thing. I don't know. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you start off with an incredible debut, it does set the bar very, very high. And yeah, it's hard to follow up on something that's as good. But yeah, it's funny because my next my number six is the same. It's the debut album as well.
Good.
So yeah, and I mean, we should stress to everybody, we've not told each other anything. I have no idea
No.
what your favorite Within Temptation albums are, and you have no idea what mine are. Well, you might have a guess at one or two of them, I guess, from some of my videos, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we have no idea about this. So yeah, we're on the same page pretty much so far. My number six is also Enter. I can tell that this is like, you know what this made me think a bit of? It made me think a bit of The Gathering, which are another Dutch band that had similar
Mm.
sounding albums in that era. I don't quite like it as much as the early Gathering albums for sure. It also has a couple of songs on that make me think of Paradise Lost in that era as well. And it sounds like it could be the child of Paradise Lost and The Gathering almost, because it's got that doom sound, very gothic, very doomy, very slow. Sharon does sound quite, quite raw a little bit in this one. She's singing in that high register, which people will probably either like or not like. And but it's pretty solid as a debut. Like you say, it's nothing great, but it's also certainly not bad. I mean, it's pretty decent for an opening album. I think it's in that, which is just very much in that particular style, which people will either take or leave. And I think, like you say, if you like this, if you were Within Temptation since the start, this might be your favorite album from the band because it's just like you might love the gothic doom stuff. But for me, it's not one of my favorites for sure. But we're starting to get to the albums now, or the really good ones after this one, I think. Anyway,
Yeah. So we would go to, what's the number now? Is it the
number
number five?
five, I think. Number five, yeah.
So yeah, my number five is actually their second album, Mother Earth.
Mm.
This was an improvement, and I think this is a solid, very solid album. I like some of the songs, like the title track "Ice Queen" on it, and I thought on this one they started to improve more and get more of like the sound of Within Temptation. So it is a huge improvement from the first one. So they sounded more like a band that were defining their sound, and that to me is really important when you want to define the sound. And also the song "Mother Earth" that opens the album is really good. I really like that opening. It's more symphonic. It's the production is better than the first one.
Yeah,
And yeah, I didn't think I didn't love it as much as some of the other albums, but I think it's because I've listened to more of those albums for more of a longer time.
yeah,
But yeah, this was a very solid entry, and I think from now on it's harder to
yeah,
put them on category because they're all the albums that we left to mention are good.
yeah,
So yeah, that's my number five, Mother Earth, from
yeah.
2000.
We're definitely in the territory now where I think this is where we might
Mhm.
find we're going in slightly different directions because I think, like you said, all the albums now are at least good. They're good quality albums. So yeah, I think that. So my next one is actually The Heart of Everything, which is probably going to be a surprise, a pretty big surprise. That's like one in their classic kind of era of the big symphonic sound that they started with the album that came before, The Silent Force. But yeah, The Heart of Everything's my next pick. And for some reason, I just don't really, something doesn't click with me with this one, like the next four I'm going to be talking about. And this is harder to place. It's where you get to those albums where you think, I just think it's just some of the other albums just connect with me for very specific reasons. Whereas for this one, it doesn't really connect with me. And I don't know if it's because it just has so much of that classic middle 2000 symphonic sound that it sort of at times feels like there's not the same level of emotional weight for me as the next four I'm going to be talking about, maybe, but it's still really well executed songs. It's well polished. I think I like the structure of The Heart of Everything, so it's kind of harsh. It's one of these points in this list where it gets harsh. For me, I like The Howling, I like Our Solemn Hour and The Cross a lot. I really like Our Solemn Hour, I think it is. That's really good. But yeah, those are my three favorite songs from that album. So that's my number five, which means we're on to your number four.
So yeah, so my number four is actually let me get my notes here quickly. It's The Silent Force from
Oh,
2004.
oh,
Uh, uh, but that's the first album of the band that I heard, and it has the first song that I heard was Stand My Ground. And I thought, oh, that's a great sound. Stand my ground, I won't give in. Like it was very epic. But yeah, I love it. But I think I love the albums that are here before. And I know what you're thinking. Like I haven't mentioned the newer album, which
mm,
I want to
neither have
say,
I.
shame on me. I didn't listen to that last year. And I'm like, I'll go to it soon.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I like this one. Stand My Ground. There's other songs like Angels, See Who I Am. But there's some of the songs that they're good to me, but I don't remember them as much. But yeah, it's a great album, and this was my entry into Within Temptation.
Mm.
At that time in 2004, there was this rock forum in Puerto Rico called Rock Forum One, and people connected and talked about bands. And
Oh, it sounds great.
I think there was a girl that really liked that. Like you should all listen to Within Temptation, and we went bowling. It was a it was a dorky club, but we talked about music. Hey, there was no YouTube back then.
No.
And this was my entry to the album. And yeah, to this day, I think Stand My Ground is one of my favorite songs from the
Mm.
band.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh, so yeah, I know that could be a hot take that I have the Silent Force at number 4. So yeah, that's my number 4, the Silent Force.
Yeah, I did think that one would be higher for you, but the funny thing is that's also my number 4, The Silent Force. So, yeah, I think pretty much what you said. I don't think that this album, again, really like the heart of everything. I'm going to say similar things, but The Silent Force has something for me that I just find more songs I'm going to go back to than the heart of everything. But they're quite similar. Like, there's not a lot that separates them. On Another Day, with my order for this band, I suppose it could change again with that order slightly. The albums in the middle of these rankings, you always find they chop and change them. It's the ones at the top and the bottom that don't really move. Yeah, so much for the reasons you said. The Silent Force, I really like See Who I Am, Stand My Ground, and Pale, Memories. There's lots of really good tracks on this one. And yeah, that's my number 4. I think this is maybe their, like, I mean, people say Mother Earth was their breakthrough album, but I feel like this is the album that really got them on the map, properly on the
Yeah,
map.
I think that
Like,
was
it's
the
the
one that
hallmark.
got
It's
them
like,
on the map.
yeah, reading that it's like considered as the hallmark, one of the hallmarks of the whole symphonic metal thing, really, this album. Like, it's one of the, it was the same year as a huge album from Nightwish once. So it was like 2004 for me is like one of the biggest symphonic metal years in the history of symphonic metal. Yeah.
Yeah, or if not, someone will comment and let us know.
Well, yeah, they might disagree. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's all good to discuss some of these things. It's
Yeah.
interesting. So where does that leave us? Your number
My,
3?
my number 3, and my number 3 is actually Lead Out from 2023. And I gotta say, uh, shame on me for not for sleeping on that album on 2023, because
And me.
I totally slept on that album. You know why? Because because I hated Resist, and that's maybe I felt like I was gonna be another snooze fest, but no, this is a return to form. I think this is their best album since since the 2011. So they really came back really strong on this album. Something that I love about this album is that they didn't rely as much on guest vocals,
Mm,
because they had like a trope, like from 2014 on, they had too many guest vocals, and sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad, because what to me that tells me is like, so you mean you are not good enough as a standalone band that you need so many vocals to sell it? uh
yeah.
or yeah, and sometimes guest vocals can be good, but sometimes it can be like they can't have them play them live. So it's like, for example, when I saw Evanescence and they play Bring Me to Life, they don't have the guy rapping. And it's like, it's missing that part. Like, that's the bad thing when you have like like someone who's singing. On this one, they have one. They have a song, Shed My Skin, that features an Isokai, who I have no idea who that is. Uh, but yeah, this album, I love Ritual. I love We Go to War, Bleed Out, Worth Dying For. I thought it was really anthemic. I thought Sharon's voice sounded like crisp, sounded like rejuvenized. It sounded like a band that they were like, we got something to prove.
Yeah.
And they did with this album. So Within Temptation, bravo. You have made me a believer again, because I was kind of indifferent to this band after the last few releases.
Yeah.
But this one is a great album that I slept on. And I think I didn't see anyone talking about this album.
I know. Neither did I until I did it, I think, in my albums and I missed video. Yeah.
Yes, and that's when I listened to it. I'm like, oh, Within Temptation album, and I listened to it, and I was like, when I first started the ranking for this, I wanted to listen to their last album first, and I was like, wow, like this sounds really great. I don't know if like I would have made my top 20 of the year, but it's a very good album and a great solid return to form, and that's why I have it at my number 3.
Yep. Same for me. Number 3, Bleed Out. So we're pretty much match for match, apart from one album, I think, so
A
far.
little bit. We
Yeah.
have some
We
differences.
have one slight difference, really, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's like Within Temptation core. I think this album gets called a bit because it's got a bit of a heavy metalcore sound, as well as
Yeah.
the signature stuff that they've done in more recent years. Really big songs, but there's something else. There's like a bit of an inspiration with the theme of war with this album, and all of the sort of I think the costs of that. And I think that song you mentioned with Ano Sakei is possibly my favorite song on this album. That really hits, that song. I mean, the harmonies. It's maybe the best guest vocal song Within Temptation. I think might have even had. I'm trying to think of other ones now that match that. But it's just really bombastic, but in the best way possible. It's just really hard hitting. The keyboard moments sound amazing. The Sharon sounds absolutely incredible when she opens up with that whoa, and then they join together, and it's one of those songs which I wish they had done more of in the more recent albums. That yes, it's got the big sound of those recent albums, but it feels like it's been really thought out. Like there's been a collaborative process that has been really carefully worked together, and it's got huge. It's like just I mean I get pretty much goosebumps from that track. But anyway, that's enough time.
Maybe it works because it's a lesser. I didn't know that artist, so I think that works
Yeah,
because when
because
you
it's a
have like
lesson,
an
no
artist
expectation. Yeah,
that you don't know, because so the other ones, you know your Howard Jones, you know Tarja,
yeah.
but that's a name that I didn't know, and I think that's a guest vocalist done great, great
Yeah.
track.
And you
Yeah,
can hear him, and he sounds fantastic. And like he matches with Sharon's voice, and that's probably not easy to do because her voice is so powerful, isn't it? Amazing.
yeah.
I really like the songs you said as well. Bleed Out, Wireless, Worth Dying For's got a really good guitar solo, so I always a sucker for guitar solos. The Purge, really good
Yeah.
song. Yeah, there's lots of good
It's a
stuff.
really good album.
Like
I don't.
one of the things I didn't like the last track, Entertain You, much, to be honest. I don't know what you thought of that one.
Yeah, I think that's the only weak track on the album,
Yeah,
and Train You. But this to me would be what you call a dark horse
yeah.
of an
Dark
album.
Horse
So
Disc.
dark horse this. So we're
Yeah.
we're down to the top. So my number 2 is The Unforgiving from 2011. And I really enjoyed this album. I, what I like about this album, it's kind of over the top, but it works. In the middle of the night, it's like really. It's got the good cheese. It's kind of cheesy sometimes,
A
but
little
it's
bit.
got that cheese that makes me happy. Shot in the Dark, which at first I thought it was gonna be like a cover from Ozzy, but it's not.
Mm.
Uh, and it's really great. And you have songs like Faster, Fire and Ice. I think one I know people love this track, but I'm not really love is Sinead. I'm
Mm.
not really I'm not really that fond of that song. But besides
I like
that
that
one,
one.
I think this is a very
It's very
I
popular.
think this is a very fun album.
Mm.
It's a cheesy album, but
Loads
Sometimes
of fun.
cheese can be good because this is a fun cheese. There's bad rotten cheese and then there's fun cheese, and this one goes in the fun cheese category. And I think that when I was revisiting because I used to do top 20s even before I have a YouTube channel. I did my top 20s for I there was a blog I used to write called Section 10, which it still exists, but I don't write for it anymore because now I do my channel.
Yeah.
And I had it was my top 20 hunters pick because they call me the hunter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was a headhunter. I still
Yeah.
am. So that's
Yeah.
why and that this album, The Unforgiving, was in my top 20 for that year. So there you go. So yeah, it's a great, fun, cheesy album. So that's why I have it at my number two.
Well, I guess this is where we work out what our number ones are. So I think I've got know your number one, and you're about to find out what my number one is.
Mhm.
My number two is this one, which I think was your number five, or it is a bit lower down. So
Mhm.
Mother Earth. Um, yeah, I like this album a lot. It's very unique, very folky, very Celtic, and I can sort of see myself as sort of in a pub somewhere, like sitting on a stool with this album playing, with someone playing an acoustic version of some of these songs, maybe, and it just working incredibly well. And it's kind of like got a warm, cozy by the fireplace type of feel to it. That's why I think partly I really like it, because there's something, maybe it's just the Celtic side of the album, which I just like a lot. And yeah, great songs on here like Ice Queen. Um, there's the never ending. There's two tracks. They're very like could work on Disney soundtracks, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Like Never Ending Story and Perfect Harmony. Like they're just really nice songs. They're like songs you'd play. I mean, if I had kids, they'd be the kind of songs I'd put on for the kids. I think they're just really nice, just gentle
Tom, I
songs.
hate to break it to you, but they'll tell you they suck.
Yeah,
And
I
you
bet you.
have
Yeah.
to, my Spotify playlist sometimes is all over the place because it depends on what they're listening to at the time. So right now, my top song is Try Everything by Shakira. Not by choice, okay?
Bit Shakira. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all right.
there you
I
go.
don't mind a bit of Shakira now and then.
But yeah,
Mm.
I can understand what you say about those songs could be in a soundtrack to movies because they have
Yeah.
that appeal to them. So yeah, that's a great album. I agree with you with your point. So I think now by everyone knows what my number one album will be, and it was not your. It's I said like
My
it's
number
the
five.
heart
Yeah.
of everything. To
It's a
me,
good album. It's a really good album.
that's my favorite album from them, because it has my favorite song from them is on this album is the one that goes Santus
Yeah.
Espiritus, relieve us from our solemn hour. I love that.
Well, now. Yeah.
When I go to confession, I sing that song.
Do you?
No, kidding. They'll throw me out.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. It's a Catholic joke for you, maybe a dad Catholic joke. So yeah, that song, I love that song. I love What Have You Done with Keith Caputo. And I like, but the only criticism with that song is that it sounds a lot like Bring Me to Life from
Yeah.
Evanescence.
It's got the
Like,
whole counterpart male vocal thing. Yeah.
yeah, I like it, but when I was listening to it right now, I'm like, it sounds like Bring Me to
A little
Life
bit
from
cheesy. Yeah.
Evanescence, but it's not better than Bring Me to Life from Evanescence.
Mm.
Uh, Within Temptation as a whole, as a band, yes, they're better than Evanescence. But this track, no. But the Howling, which starts the album, it's so great. Sharon's vocals on it are awesome. I love Hand of Sorrow. I love Frozen. Plus, it has the power ballad. You're
Mm.
all I need, and yeah, that's a beautiful ballad.
That's a good song.
Uh, yeah, that's a good song for people that thinks that metalheads have no feelings. I actually sent that song to my girlfriend the other day. I'm like, oh, you might like this song, and it's funny. She wrote to me back. So they sound like a better version of Evanescence, and she's not into metal at all. So that was her honest answer. So, but yeah, to me, this is the album that really made me fall in love with the band. So yeah, that to me, the heart of everything, my number one pick.
Okay, which leaves my number one, which was your number two, your runner-up. And yeah, I've got this one. Uh, I always thought it's like a comic book front cover, and apparently there were
I
comic
think it
books
is.
that
It's
accompanied
like a
the
story.
album. So it's all in theme with the comic books and the 3 films they did as well, apparently, or something with this. I don't know much about the concept or the comic books or all the stories behind it, but I know I like the album a lot. Like you said, it's a fun album. Just tracks that are very immediate. There's not so much of the symphonic side. It's like up straight kind of pop and rock stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like very accessible, very quick to get to know. But there's some really like I just think there's some really great songs here, like Faster, Fire and Ice. I think that's a great ballad. I think you were talking about how you love the ballads. Was it All I
Yeah,
Need?
they do
But
good
there's some
with
great
ballads.
ballads. I mean, when you've got a voice like Sharon, and I mean, Jane Ogle does, you can probably belt out some fantastic stuff, and she makes good use of that in her ballads. I think Fire and Ice is a great
Yeah.
song. I love Iron. Sinead, I like that song, but I get why you might not be as keen. Yeah, for sure. Stairway to the Skies is a good closer, and I don't even know you know the bonus tracks on here. I don't know if yeah, they're probably not going to appear, but there's some great bonus tracks.
Yeah. No, that album is great. And yeah, it had like, I think it was inspired in like a comic book, like a story. And at that
Mm.
time, that was like, especially if you heard Coheed and Cambria, doing comics with music was something that became very common. But I think, yeah, out of all their albums, this is an album that sounds to me like their most fun album. Uh, this where they having the most fun. I was almost gonna have this as my number one, but I
Yeah,
think I like the heart of everything just a little tiny bit more
yeah,
because it's got our solemn hour. Uh, but yeah, uh, those are our picks. Yeah, great picks, man.
yeah. Very sort of pretty close lists. I think apart from Mother Earth and within the Heart of Everything, those were
Yeah.
the only two that were very different places. Everything else was very close, so it was really interesting.
And we didn't we didn't say what for people like, oh, they talk to each other. No, it's fun
Yeah,
to guess this live. And yeah, it's I like ballads, like if you have a singer like that, you can do it. If you're in a grindcore band, yes, I would say stay away from ballads. But if you have a great voice, why not?
that's awesome. Yeah, which brings us to the end with both of our now number one Within Temptation albums decided on. Let us know in the comments what your number one Within Temptation albums are. Maybe put your full rankings of these albums from number 8 right up to number 1. Let us know what your favorite songs are as well from this band with like an interesting evolution from start to end from the Gothic Doom years, and like so many bands where they change over time and become a little bit more commercial maybe and change their sounds. And like a lot of symphonic metal bands, I think you found particularly some of those Dutch bands where they start off Gothic and they get more and more sort of big and symphonic and poppy even as they go on. And there's kind of you see that evolution in other bands as well from that era. And yeah, Within Temptation, there you go. That's our ranking. That's episode 3 of Symphonic Sundays. Hope you've all really enjoyed the episode. And just to say thanks to my co-YouTuber friend Hector from Children on a Couch. Please do drop him a sub and help him continue to hit those milestones as he does with Children on a Couch. And yeah, don't forget to drop a sub to me because I'm sort of floating close constantly to this 500 milestone at the moment. So it would be great if you do have time and you are willing to drop a sub to the Green Man too. We do reviews as well as Symphonic Sundays, rankings, and horror and fantasy content as well. So from me and Hector, until next time on the channel, bye for now.
Bye.